I was looking for a washing basket to carry the washing out, and I didn't want to buy a plastic one, and I was like, carrying it out in boxes and it'd be so wet it would fall through. I came across a course, and it was a make a basket in a weekend course sort of thing, and it had never occurred to me to make it. And I'm like, oh, right. So I went on the course. By the end of the first day, I was absolutely head over heels in love, found what I'd been looking for all my life, or waiting for, my purpose. It was a light bulb, genuine light bulb moment. I mean, life changing, life directing moment. And from that moment onwards, nothing was the same, was it? Everything was focused on making me a basket maker.
There's a modern expectation, especially for younger people, that things can happen quickly. But the instantaneousness of the internet and things, it leads people to believe that they can walk before they can crawl even. And that you can't do that. You cannot do that with handcrafts. You have to graft it out.
It was about showing that crofting, to young people especially, can be a viable thing without having to grow cows and sheep and without subsidies.
There's baskets that we make, which are traditional West Coast baskets, that almost nobody else makes.
The first thing I realised, even before the course was over, was that I had to grow my own material, because to me it had to be the full circle of sustainability. That was the only course in Scotland that I knew of, and when I found out more, there was very, 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 very few basket makers about, and it was a red listed endangered craft. So I'm like, we're living in a house with normal jobs.
A small garden.
A small garden. How does that happen? You know, no internet, no Google, no YouTube, no anything. How does that happen? I went about looking for land everywhere and thinking, you know, can I rent it even? Then we got an invitation to come to Eigg and house sit for somebody who I knew in Greenpeace previously, who had ended up on Eigg, and I knew nothing about Eigg. I didn't know about the buyout. I didn't know how special, how transformative a place it was. I didn't know anything about Eigg. We were coming because I'm looking for opportunities all the time. My whole focus is about land and how I can get my hands on it. So we came and we house sat for 2 weeks. By that time, there was a house on the island, Shore Cottage. It was right on the beach. It had loads of land. So we went off in the boat, and we were back 6 weeks later, having sold our house and bought that one, and
resigned our jobs.
Resigned our jobs. Just
complete lifestyle change.
Complete lifestyle
in 6
change,
weeks,
because it had all this land. Getting here was a journey. The lorry broke down, which meant that we had
missed
to wait.
The boat.
We missed the boat and had to wait another 3 days in a hotel and all that sort of Eigg stuff, even before you get here. Got here and there was a sheep in the water.
It was the dead rats. Yes. We had half a dozen decomposing rats in the water supply.
And somebody said to me, "Oh, don't worry about that, I've had a sheep."
Yeah, so.
There was no pier, so the transition was done at sea onto a small boat from the big boat, and that included anything you were physically, cows, sheep, furniture, human beings. It was all done that way. Yeah. It was great, actually. Pascal cleaned toilets for the first
2 years.
First 2 years. So going from a physicist to a toilet cleaner didn't matter at all.
It was just about getting by. It was about finding a way of surviving here.
Surviving, really. So I could grow the willow.
Yeah, and we planted willow at Shore Cottage.
Yeah.
2001.
By this time I'd found the Irish basket maker,
Yes.
so once a year I had to travel to another, it was a remote... Galway, it was a remote part of Galway, and it was like 48 hours travelling getting there in the middle of winter. And I did it once a year for a week, for a few years.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and I got his willow, because he grew his own willow, and I got the cuttings, and I was learning everything from him, came back. And then very quickly, I realised that I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I wasn't a basket maker. I managed through going to Joe for a few years, and then, you know...
Developed it as far as you could.
I did.
On the island, with a very limited sales potential.
No market.
A little bit of selling on the mainland, but eventually it got to the point where we had to sell up. And part of that was needing to develop the basketry business.
And then I fell off my bike into a pothole and broke my shoulder, and that changed everything.
I started helping with some of the heavy work in 2004 after the shoulder injury, which was a life-changing injury. Anyway, so that's where I started going, but I was only helping. I was doing the green woodworking as best I could. I was harvesting willow and helping in the sense of moving stuff about, but I wasn't a hands-on basket maker in the slightest. In fact, when I started making baskets, as beginners do, it was all very worrying and difficult. We became All About Willow 2008. We came up with the name All About Willow.
That's right, and then we
got
went
the website.
to Europe.
And then we visited, I don't know how we got into that, but we went, it was through the Basket Makers Association. We found out about France's biggest basketry festival at a small place called Val-Abrègue, nearish Avignon, in the south of France. And he decided to go, just to see what this was like. And we went, and it was a real eye-opener, because we realised how, well, not rubbish, but how far, well, you had to go, or we had to go, in terms of ability and skills.
We had something to
get
compare
as good as these people who were there.
We had something at last that was comparable, you know.
It took 3 years, and 3 years of practice, really. And then we were the second British people to take a stall's worth of basket to the biggest French basketry festival in 2011. And we went there, and we had no idea if we could sell baskets.
If we could hack it.
And it turned out that, yeah, we could compete. Not as brilliantly as some of the good French makers, but we sold baskets in France, made from Scottish willow in Scotland, and it was amazing. And at that point, we met a whole generation of really skilled basket makers, French, Spanish,
German, from all over Europe. But the point
who have remained very good friends, really.
That's right, but the point was really that before we were isolated. We had to spend that time with other basket makers, and that really deepened our understanding of the craft.
2012, we lived in France for nearly a year.
Yeah.
In the Dordogne, making baskets.
Yeah, and make it and
going to French basketry fairs.
And earning a living.
And Spanish basketry fairs as well.
Yeah, and teaching in France and Spain and Germany. It came to the point, do we stay here? Because it would have been so easy to stay there.
Pre-Brexit.
You were in a world where people understood baskets. Men carried baskets to the market on a daily basis. That, here it was like, oh, that's really nice. What could I use it for? And it's obviously a basket with a handle, and it's like, put something in it. Anything, your choice. And so we had this whole educational journey as well with the British public. Whilst we were away, we had our willow on the croft, and we came back and harvested it every year.
So we'd kept the connection. Finally, I plucked up the courage to come back to Eigg with the idea of building a house, setting up a life, having a workshop, planting willow.
And when you say plucked up the courage, it was because you were overwhelmed with the thought of having to build a
Oh,
house
yeah.
and a workshop, which is perfectly reasonable. That to me was a detail because, you know, I was still on that mission, and that's where the two of us differed, because I didn't realise just how daunting the prospect of moving back to the croft and building a house and a workshop and on Eigg.
Yes, which has its own challenges.
And we had to get, our spring was 200 metres up that hill, and we were up in that hill, and
We had
with
to
the
carry the
buckets.
water in buckets.
And by the time you got up to the caravan, you know, you were lucky if you had a third left.
Yeah,
So that was our water, and that was for 3 years, 3 winters.
So it was only really after we got into the house in 2017, that we could get back on the basketry trail again.
That's right. And when we did, it just exploded.
7-8 years that we've been fully professional basket makers. You'd have to say fully professional basket makers. So we've created what we've managed to show, and it was Catherine's vision, was that we have a sustainable business supporting 2 people, which is based entirely on a crop grown on our croft. So the willow is the crop, it's harvested annually. We do the minor processing, which is drying and sorting really. And then we add value to that crop by making baskets and selling them. And that gives us enough.
From our small post office on Eigg, we send baskets all around the world. It was about showing that crofting, to young people especially, can be a viable thing without having to grow cows and sheep and without subsidies. Very important.
Yes, because we don't get any subsidies for growing willow. There's nothing.
We had to
available
apply to the Scottish government to grow willow, because this was a croft, and in a croft you have cows and sheep, and it set us back a year and a half with our plans, you know, because we didn't know if we were allowed to grow it, even though it was growing, because we had planted it.
I mean, you can be a professional basket maker. You can buy your willow from commercial growers. You can make baskets and you can sell them. It's a particular business model. We've chosen, and we've been privileged to have access to land, a different business model, which is unusual, growing willow and making baskets professionally. You don't need a lot. I mean, we've got what, 5,000 stalls. That is willow trees, coppiced annually. We've got 0.3 of a hectare, and that sustains us. So you don't need a lot of land. You need the right land in the right place. And willow is a low maintenance crop. It doesn't need a lot of looking after. It just needs the herbivores fenced out. You've got to harvest it in the winter. Till there's some change to the way that land is available.
Yeah, and land is used.
You know, not many people will be able to do what we do, and it's a real
that's
shame.
why it's important that we do it. That's
Yeah.
why we keep it alive. We keep the example going. That's what's key.
So now we're at the point where we're actually managing to pass on some of the skills. We've developed a whole set of, some of the skills are unique. There's baskets that we make, which are traditional West Coast baskets that almost nobody else makes. You only get good at handcrafts if you practice, practice, practice. That's all there is to it. Repetition is everything. There's a modern expectation, especially for younger people, that things can happen quickly. You know, the instantaneousness of the internet and things, it leads people to believe that they can walk before they can crawl even. And that you can't do that. You cannot do that with handcrafts. You have to graft it out. And it takes years to get good. We had a contract with the Outlander TV production people. We got in as the basket makers, making all the new baskets for the film production.
11 years.
So we'd done the new baskets for every series, and they kept us going from a money point of view, a business point of view, a practice point of view, whilst we were building the house. On setting up the life here, which is a house, a workshop, well, actually a workshop and then the house, and grow food and set up a garden and create something from
Nothing.
Bearland bracken infestation.
It was nothing.
So Outlander gave us a whole breadth of different kind of experiences, and they paid us effectively to practice loads of stuff that we wouldn't possibly have been able to afford to
Pascal's
practice.
mother went to the museum in Paris and got us a book, and when they were in France. And
we've had to do baskets. It was all 18th century Parisian stuff. And
but the key,
American,
and it was all 18th century as well. But the key thing is what Pascal's actually saying, it was about our depth of experience. Because we had that experience, we were able just to look at a basket and see what was going on there.
Yes, look at an illustration.
The material was a different challenge because they were used different materials. Every time there would be something complicated that she wanted, you know, and it was always like the week before. Oh yeah, she never changed in that respect. So she never.
No. But then I think TV companies they always work on 4 to 6 week notice or less. You know, it's everybody.
And she helped us as well. She says, you know, I do have one problem, and I need to talk to you about it. She said, you're not charging enough. So
we had to put our prices up.
And we had the confidence. Remember, it's all about confidence. You know, and it's all about imposter syndrome that creative people. And you don't even know that's happening. You don't. You see what I mean? It's like,
you can go on courses. You can go on courses just to do pricing. You know, making things is one thing. Selling things and making a living is entirely separate, really. And a lot of that is just confidence and experience, is how as you price things, how you sell things.
I hated the selling.
I like the selling. Most of our work now is bespoke. So somebody says, I want this basket, I want it to look like this, I want it these colours, blah, blah, blah. And we're good enough to be able to design our own baskets. If you can make it out of willow, we can make it. And so what's the silliest thing we made? So we made Scottish Opera wanted, they were doing a joint production with Santa Fe Opera in New Mexico. I think it was New Mexico. And it was productions of Falstaff. This is about 4 or 5 years ago. At one point, the main character Falstaff is carried around in a basket. So we did 2 baskets, and one of them was 2 meters long by nearly a metre high by 1.2 metres deep.
We weren't allowed to put metal in it.
I know, so we weren't, because it had to be carried. But I mean, the tenors who were singing weighed 17 stone or something like that. So we had to make these baskets, and that
strong enough just with the willow.
And that was 70-hour baskets. I mean, that's how long the basket took to make, was 70 hours. So that's the strangest. That's
but all of that's great. It's all great fun. It's all a challenge. Come on, you love it.
But yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But the other thing for that is it's not just about experience. We had the material.
Yes, because
we couldn't have bought that. The material for those baskets doesn't exist commercially.
It's taken 20 years to get to being where we are, that we're turning work down and coming off social media and things like that. We're at the top of our game. We have been at the top of our game for at least 5, 6, 7 years.